I know by now, almost all of us probably have seen the Hatchet series, are familiar with Victor Crowley and director Adam Green. But Adam Green has one specific film that I feel flew completely under the radar. So let's talk about it. Welcome back. I don't really have much news this week. I just want to say one thing. One positive. I want to start this off on a positive note. I have been living where I live now for 10 years. This is my 10th year where I'm living. And I, in these 10 years, have never utilized my balcony. Honestly, I've just used it for storage, used it for whatever. This year, Alex and I are taking full advantage of our balcony. We have a whole garden of vegetables planted out there. We are going to invest in a grill. We are going to try to make as much time possible outside as we can this year on our small space. So I just wanted to say that, because if you live in an apartment or you live in a small space, I just want to encourage you to start that garden balcony. It is so fulfilling to go out there every morning and just tend to my little garden. It's such a beautiful experience. So if you've been toying with the idea of a garden balcony garden, whatever, do it. Please, and let me know the results. So today's movie is actually quite special. Alex and I first watched this 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, for our first film fest that we hosted. And I thought it was such a special film. It really, I talk about practical effects and how much I love practical effects so much all the time. And with this movie, you can really feel it. If you follow me on Instagram, guys, you've probably saw my rant this weekend watching Lee Cronin's The Mummy. I had a total crash out. I had a 100% crash out over that movie and how bad I thought it was. So if you'd like me to maybe talk about that, maybe I can do a full video on that. But speaking of, before I get into it, give the Get Weird podcast a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, a comment, do whatever, wherever. If you listen on audio platforms only, you will notice that every Monday I will be uploading the audio to an existing series on my horror channel called Side Character Deep Dive, where once a month I go through and pick a horror movie where I think a side character from that movie deserves more love. And this week, yesterday actually, as I'm recording this, I uploaded my 13th episode of that, all about Amber Sweet from Repo, the Genetic Opera. So if you would like to see that, please go ahead and check out the video, or you can wait a while for the audio for that one. But episode 1 is up. You can go ahead and listen to that if you have not already. And every Monday you'll get a side character deep dive audio, and then on Wednesday you'll get the pod, girl. So today we are talking all about Digging Up the Marrow from 2014, directed by Adam Green. As previously mentioned, one of the most underrated and genuinely fascinating indie horror movies of the 2010s. Before getting into the movie itself, Adam Green is a huge figure in the indie horror space, especially if you grew up loving practical effects as I do, grimy creature features, and filmmakers that actually feel connected to the horror community. He's the director of the Hatchet series, like I mentioned. He directed Frozen, if you guys know Frozen, not to be confused with Frozen, Big Summer Blowout. But he also co-hosts the podcast, The Movie Crypt, alongside another one of my favorite filmmakers, Joe Lynch. Can we get claps in the chat for Joe Lynch? Love him. Now, the two of them basically just give us horror fans and aspiring filmmakers an unfiltered look into the realities of indie filmmaking, conventions, burnout, production nightmares, and just surviving the horror industry, and I think it's awesome. Now, that kind of self-awareness bleeds into Digging Up the Marrow, because this movie, it plays almost like a weird semi-fictional documentary. It's definitely a found footage mockumentary where Adam Green is essentially playing himself, and I love it. The film follows Green as he's contacted by a retired detective named William Decker. Fred Decker. Anyways, played by Ray Wise, who obviously has massive ties to David Lynch, so many other horror properties. But anyways, he claims monsters are real and living beneath society in an underground world called the Marrow. At this point, you know what? It doesn't seem too far-fetched. At first, it feels like Adam is documenting a conspiracy theorist or maybe just an eccentric old man obsessed with creatures, but the deeper the movie goes, the more uncomfortable and believable things start feeling. Decker has drawings, evidence, stories, and photographs, and the movie constantly balances this line between, like, this guy is fucking insane and what if he's actually right? The coolest thing about the movie is how grounded it feels. It uses people who we know and love, like Tom Holland, my uncle Lloyd Kaufman, and our beloved Tony Todd. It just makes everything feel authentic, almost like you kind of stumbled upon some forbidden horror documentary. So as Adam and his crew start investigating entrances to the Marrow, the movie slowly shifts into this eerie found footage creature feature where the cameras start catching glimpses of these strange humanoid beings hiding in the woods, in underground tunnels. The creature designs are so incredible and were inspired by the artwork of artist Alex Pardee, which gives the monsters this really surreal and grimy emotional look that it feels so much different from typical horror creatures. And a huge reason it works is because it relies heavily on practical effects instead of just drowning everything in CGI. The monsters, they feel tangible. It feels so sad. And it feels so unsettling because you're seeing these things exist in our world, pretty much. The movie also becomes surprisingly emotional as it hints that Decker's obsession with these creatures may actually connect back to the disappearance of his son, which adds such a tragic layer beneath all of the monster mythology we're following. One of the coolest behind-the-scenes facts of the movie was it was secretly filmed over the course of about 4 years, with Adam Green publicly pretending he was just making a documentary about monster art, so the real premise would not leak before its release. The production was also happening during an incredibly difficult period in Green's life involving personal loss and major life changes, which gives this film a weirdly personal atmosphere underneath all of the horror elements, especially when you know that going into the film. The ending sticks with you instead of over-explaining anything. The movie ends on just a lingering, more creepy note that leaves you questioning whether Decker was telling the truth the entire time. Now, Digging Up the Marrow feels like such a love letter to us monster kids, us outsider horror fans, us practical creature effects people, and the people who grew up connecting more with monsters than normal society. It's actually creepy. It's kind of melancholic. It's very heartfelt, and it's truly one of the most unique found footage horror films released in the last decade. This movie is for the people who grew up loving monsters because we just felt different. So if you saw this movie, what do you think the Marrow really is? And what do you think it's a metaphor for? And in saying all of that, thank you so much for being here for another week. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for being weird. Stay safe, stay spooky, and perhaps don't go digging in the woods at night.